Lights on. Step out. Walk forward. Lips, cheeks, stomachs. Suck in. Stare. Spin. Walk back. Not too fast, not too slow. Repeat. A fashion runway is a choreographed movement that's performed homogenously, whether it's in Paris, Milan, Tokyo, New York, Spain, or Los Angeles. The runway is the first stage for the public to view the merging of a designer's garment with a human body. Buyers note the most marketable pieces, photographers scramble to get the best shots for their agency, and consumers admire from afar, imagining themselves in the models' bodies. Performance art is a term used to define a form of art where the human body is the medium. Through movement, action, or the conscious lack of both, the art is in the moment, an intimate experience between the viewer and the performer. Art traditionally has been used to describe an object, a painting, drawing, or sculpture that objectively exists in space and time until its eventual destruction. Performance art contrasts this generic definition. It can't be bought or sold, and it won't be listed at Sotheby's to forever hang on an aristocrat's wall. It's a powerful artistic message that can only exist during its duration of action. Fashion traditionally has been used to describe a garment, its style, fabric, or fit. It lives in a store, a magazine, and your closet. It is widely accepted that fashion is an art form, a textile sculpture crafted by the designer, if you will. Unlike the art you pay to see in a museum, fashion is meant for the body. It obeys the body. Its form and function is ruled by the contours of the human shape. If we could accept that clothes are a form of art, is wearing clothes a form of performance art? This inevitably will boil down to semantics. The word art is so subjectively defined that it's hard to make irrefutable statements. However, for the sake of a strong, persuasive video, I'm going to answer that question right now. No, not all runways are performance art pieces. There are typical fashion runways, theatrical fashion runways, and performance art pieces that incorporate fashion either on or off the runway. There are two types of performers I'll be discussing in this video. The first type is performance artists that use fashion as a subject in their works, and the second type is fashion designers that use performance as a subject in their works. Performance has been around since the dawn of humankind. Rituals, plays, and dance have been a commonality of every ancient and modern civilization. However, it wasn't until the early 20th century when the futurists argued that performance should be treated with as much respect as contemporary painting. The Bauhaus School in Germany was the first school to offer performance art as a focus of study. Oskar Schlemmer, a Bauhaus graduate of this major, used abstract dance as the conduit of his art. His seminal work is called Theatrics ballet. The dance was elevated by the incorporation of elaborate costumes which accentuated the geometric forms of the body. Rhombuses around the waist, cones around the thighs, protruding 3D shapes, headpieces, and beautiful lattice skirts defied traditional silhouettes of dress. These costumes would influence a myriad of designers, and the dance itself would influence a very important choreographer of the fashion industry, Merce Cunningham. Cunningham was an avant-garde choreographer who created a new style of modern dance that was non-representational, emphasizing movement and the body's relationship with space. In 1997, he collaborated with Ray Kawakubo of Comme des Garçons for a performance piece called Scenario, where dancers wore the looks from the collection in a performative dance piece. The collection, called Dress Meets Body, Body Meets Dress, used 3D inserts in the dresses that contrasted standard silhouettes while simultaneously emphasizing the human body's natural irregularities. This is one of the first performance pieces by a designer. It was separate from the runway for that collection, which was showed in Paris. This piece was intended to convey an artistic message, not just a capital incentivized showcasing of the garments. Much like Schlemmer's ballet, the art was the body, its interaction with Ray's untraditional clothes, and its relationship with space explored by the choreographed movements by Cunningham. A few decades after Oskar Schlemmer's ballet, a group of artists in Japan were making a major impact on performance. The Gutai Group were a collective of artists that utilized action and physical engagement to make stunning works of art in different forms. One of these artists was Atsuko Tanaka. Her most popular work is called Electric Dress, a performance art piece that was performed in countless museums until her death. For this piece, Tanaka stood within an assemblage of colored lights connected together by a seemingly infinite amount of wires. Encumbered by the electronics, viewers could barely see Tanaka's body under the dress. The dress highlighted technology's heavy influence on our industrialized culture and the individual. It also emphasized the Japanese media's objectification/fetishization of women's bodies and its suppression of female expression. This theme was further explored during the performance at the end of Alexander McQueen's SS 1999 show, where a robot arm painted Shalom Harlow's dress as she was spun around like a product during manufacturing. This finale was not necessary for McQueen to sell his collection. Standing alone, the clothes were already memorable and marketable. He chose to exhibit this performance art piece to relay an artistic message. Similar to Otsuka, the body and the dress were the medium for a statement on its technology's domination of media and women during the turn of the 21st century. Art as an object is strong, but performance pieces like this can touch a wider audience due to the personalization of the artistic message by its use of the body. Watching a performance piece feels intimate. Sometimes it feels uncomfortable, but that's what makes it beautiful. Nicola El is a Moroccan artist who often used the female body as the protagonist of her works. In 1969, she constructed an extremely large red coat with multiple head openings. The work, Red Coat, was made for individuals to wear together and walk around public spaces as a performance. The tagline of this work was, "Same skin for everybody," implying the equality and congruence we people have collectively as the human species. It also established a level of intimacy between the separate individuals. Besides their distinct backgrounds, they all were connected by the coat. The finale of legendary designer Issey Miyake's 1999 show was a long series of red dresses, all connected by the same textile worn by every model in the show. He likely directly referenced Nicola L's red coat, using this long garment as a performance art piece that embodied uniform identity and equality. Of course, it wasn't for sale, and it wasn't purely aestheticism. It had artistic intention and will go down forever in fashion history. The garment is a personal object. Until death, it will physically be the closest thing to your raw form. By utilizing this bond, artists efficiently convey deep humanistic messages through clothing that other objects simply don't have the form to do so. Lucy Orta is an English contemporary artist who graduated with a fashion and knitwear degree in 1991, but instead chose to pursue art and performance art instead of ready-to-wear. Much like Nicola L's red coat, her 2001 work, Nexus Architecture, harps on themes of social sculpture, a term coined by German conceptual artist Joseph Beuys, which defined a style of art that connected communities of people as artists. In this work, she fashioned a large system of suits which individuals wore as a collective. The physical connections resulted in social connections. The Nexus piece was either displayed in museums or worn as a performance piece in public spheres. Much of Lucy's work takes the shape of functional garments. However, its artistic and symbolic meaning is always her end goal. In 2015, Hussein Chalayan, a designer known for his innovative runways and garments, directed a performance piece called Gravity Fatigue. Performed as a dance, it was described by the press as an exploration of the relationship between the human body and clothing through performance. My favorite act used stretchable garments to attach dancers as they repelled from each other. The fabric functioned like an electromagnetic bomb that contorted their forms the more they tried to separate. This act harped on themes of human connections similar to Orta, but it focused more on displacement and how connections can disable us. Imitation of Christ is a conceptual art project started by art school graduates Matthew Damhave and Tara Subkoff. Tara said that the project was misinterpreted as a fashion brand, which they eventually decided to pursue. Their pieces were all made of recycled clothes and shown through guerrilla-style performance events. Their way of presenting clothes was incredibly anti-industry, satirical, and focused mainly on the performance rather than the garments. In 2002, they led the fashion editors through a back gate of the runway venue. Upon entering, the critics realized they were on the catwalk and the models in the collection's clothes were watching them in their reserved seats, taking notes. In 2012, they presented the performance, This Is Not a Fashion Show, at a gallery in Chelsea. The performance consisted of adult models and adolescent models getting dressed in front of mirrors, obsessing over their image. They put on excessive makeup, the collection's clothes, and did their hair in extravagant styles, all whilst never taking their eyes off the mirror. This presentation, as the name blatantly stated, was not a fashion show, but rather a private viewing of the psychological repercussions of the fashion industry. All these examples I've discussed so far are pure performance arts elevated by fashion. When it comes to Fashion Week, people often conflate theatrics and performance art. Theatrics are still very interesting and transcend the standardized catwalk. However, they differ from performance art because their purpose is solely for press, aesthetics, and ultimately to sell the clothes. In 1984, Terry Mugler was in the limelight after having model Pat Cleveland float from the roof onto the catwalk in an angelic outfit. Of course, this is cool and radical for the time, but there was no artistic intention behind it except to impress the image of the Mugler brand. This can also be said about Walter van Beirendonck's late 90s shows for Wild and Lethal Trash. Walter had the funding to put on incredibly extravagant shows that really portrayed Walter's unique world. They're still so fun to watch and well choreographed, but they don't fall under the same category as the performance art pieces I've mentioned so far. This isn't a bad thing, Walter's the GOAT, but there's a difference between theatrics and performance. What makes fashion presentations performance art pieces is intention. It's the conscious choice of the designer to prioritize the message of the performance over the sale of the garment. I still think this is a very untapped world of fashion. With an oversaturation of brands and new clothing each year, the design of the garments are becoming more irrelevant. It is getting increasingly difficult to convey a story or statement solely through the design of a garment. Performance might be the answer. For designers willing to take the risk of being unconventional and forget about marketability for a season, an important moment can be made. A moment that won't lose relevancy after it's stopped being reposted, a moment that won't be replaced by a trend, a moment that won't be inaccessible by a price tag. Performance art is the antithesis of all the current problems in fashion, and I think it's what we truly need to start solving them.